Okay, hello everybody. We're going to do a series of short video tutorials to get you started with AutoCAD. And the first one we're going to start off with is a kerb detail, a precast concrete kerb detail, which you can see in front of you here. 255 by 125 half batter kerb, and you'll see these all over the place when you've got a junction between a footpath and a road. Here you've got a concrete haunch which supports the kerb and stops it from rocking about the place, keeps it steady, and then you'll have a strip of a foundation, very simple concrete foundation. A mortar bed in here so that it's bedded well in, gets it level. Okay, and then you've got some hatching there which indicates your ground. Okay, now of course the road would be made up of bituminous macadam and all sorts of layers of road materials. So, but for the sake of this, we're just going to keep it fairly simple. Okay, so what we want to do first of all is get started on a new drawing, and in this case we're going to go to the top left hand of your screen. Now before I do that, I'm just going to see if I can get a spotlight on my cursor. So we'll go to the top left of your screen, click on the big red A, and we'll go down to New, and we just click New. Don't even need to go across the drawing, and it'll come up with a series of templates. The one we're looking for is CAD ISO, and the reason we're going for that one is because the template already has millimeters set up for you. So we're going to click on that and then open. Okay, so we'll see a black screen in front of us, and the first thing we want to do is let's just draw a line first of all to see what the value of that line is in terms of its dimension. Okay, so what we want to do first of all is we want to set up a couple of things. The first thing we want to do is we want to set up our lines so that they're up, down, sideways to sideways. So you can actually draw lines at a slope or a diagonal, but for the sake of what we're doing just for the moment, we're going to be drawing horizontally and vertically. If you go down to the ortho mode F8 or click F8, you can click on this little perpendicular symbol here, and if you click it so it highlights in blue, then that means you're going to be able to draw orthogonally. Okay, so this seems to have gone off a wee bit here. I'm just going to try it again. Annotate, spotlight. There we go. So let's just draw a line to start off with. We'll draw a simple line of, say, 400 millimeters across the way. Okay, so go up to the line command, click on it. Now, when you click to start off with, right, I'll do that one again. Gotta click, so it should say specify first point. So click once, drag it along, and now we want this dimension here to stop stretching. We want it to be fixed at 400 millimeters. So we go type in 400, and that goes into your command line here, and then enter. Okay. Now you'll see there that I had to go back to actually see it because it's drawn that quite small. Now I can zoom in, right? And I'll show you how to bring that into position better. But for the moment, we're going to go up 150, and that's going to be the depth of your foundation. We want to go back 400 again because we started off from left to right at 400. So we're going to go back 400. And then we're going to snap into the end where we started before. So back to the start, and then hit enter to close, and that should do that. Okay, so we've basically got a rectangle in front of you there. And what I was saying before is if you have that off your screen for whatever reason, sometimes you might have lots of geometry off your screen and you're going, well, wait a minute, I know I've drawn this, but where is it? What you can do is you could go up to this kind of icon here, north, south, east, west. Click on the top, right in the middle, and it'll bring that into frame for you. So anytime you're lost, you think you've got some geometry that you've drawn, you're not going mad, you've just got to zoom all or click on this top part. Now, the next thing we want to do, which we should have done first of all, really, was we should have put in some layers onto our drawing. So the purpose of layers is that we can draw with different colors. It helps the visibility of what you're actually drawing. But the other point as well is it's quite a strong function because you can select lots of different objects with the same properties. So you can have an object with a property, it might be on a particular layer like foundation. Okay, so you could click on your foundation or any other sort of concrete feature, and it might turn all of those on or off, whatever way you want it to. So you're in control, and it's just a case of giving layers properties, so you can change the line type, width, you can change the thickness, all these sorts of things. You can even change it from a continuous line to a dotted line. So from that point of view, layers are very important. So what we're going to do is, and I've lost this little, you can't see it on your screen, but I can. I'm going to get our spotlight back on here again. We're going to create, like I say, layers. So the first layer we're going to do is a foundation layer. So we're going to go here, which says new layer. Once you click on it, you can just start typing straight away. So let's start typing foundation or found. Get that in a different case. And we'll make that into a green color. Okay, you can choose whatever colors you want, but concrete is normally shown in green for various technical drawings. So you'll find that brick is red, timber will be yellow, and so on. So the next one will be concrete haunch. Concrete haunch. We'll keep that in green as well. Okay. Another one, we'll make this our mortar bed. Mortar bed. And we'll make this one, say, make it a magenta color. Next one we'll make is our precast concrete kerb, PC for precast, kerb. Oops. We'll make that yellow. A couple more to do. We'll create some annotation, which is really our text and our dimensions. We'll go for text, and we'll make that gray. And finally, we'll make our dimensions DIMS for dimensions, DIMS. And we'll make that, oh, we lost there, make that red. Okay, so you've got a number of layers. You can add to these every so often if you wish, but that gets us started for now. And then we can go up here and we can close that. Okay. Now, if you're wondering where these have all gone, they're up here on your layer properties manager. Okay, or your layer drop-down box. Okay, so if you concrete haunch, dimensions, foundation, mortar bed, and so on. Okay, so anytime you want to go and change your layer, you can click on any of these here and it'll start drawn in that particular layer. Okay, so we want to make this, which what we should have done initially. We should have done the layers first of all, but I'm just going to show you how to change that into your foundation layer. So you just click on the relevant layer and it'll change it into the appropriate color and that layer. Now, the funny thing is you actually have to go back in and get onto your current layer by clicking on the box again. Okay. All right, so now that we're on our foundation layer, which we should have been in the first place, we will continue on I want to create a little bit of a nib here, which you'll see on the PowerPoint that I have given you. It's at the start of your PowerPoint. It's just a still shot of this little bit here. So we're going to keep going on, and I want you to snap on to the corner. These are your object snaps, these little green symbols. Snap onto your endpoint, and then just drag it up, right? Okay, and we want to type in 75 up, 75 to the left, drag it down 75, and it'll snap in perpendicular. Okay, you don't want to go any further, so just to close that off, just hit enter and it'll just close it like that. Okay, now I don't want to see this bit of line here. Okay, so I'm just going to drag it back like that. Okay, you can click on these grips, bring them back and forward. Grips are very useful for contracting an object, a line, whatever, or stretching it. There's other ways to do it, but sometimes it's just as easy as anything else. The wee blue boxes are called grips. Right, so that's our foundation. Now, I want to create a line. If I can just show you, if we can just get a line there, and again, you can refer back to your PowerPoint on this, and I want to create a line there, because this is going to be a kind of a bed of mortar for your concrete, your precast concrete kerb to sit on. So in that case, let's go on to our precast concrete layer, precast concrete kerb, I should say, and that's the yellow one here. Okay, and I'm going to draw a line over the top. Now, this is something I tend to do just when I'm just, it's like a little reference line. I'm going to draw it down there, and I'm going to draw it across here. Okay, you'll see what I mean in a second. So draw a line just really right over the top of that green line. We're going to delete that in a wee second, and then hit enter to close off. Now we're going to go for what's called an offset command. An offset command is up here in your modify box. This is your ribbon here. So anytime I mention ribbon, this is the modify box of your ribbon. The offset command allows you to, it's like a copy command, but it only copies it in one particular direction or one particular plane. It's like a sideways U. So if we click on this offset icon, okay, make sure it's on there. Sometimes you have to click a couple of times on this computer for some reason, and you should see then the command coming up at the bottom here. You could equally type offset, but it should be for speed. You should be able to just click on the actual icon itself. Now, it's asking you to specify the offset distance. In this case, we're going to offset this line that we've drawn down here. We're going to offset it 25 millimeters, right, which is nearly on an inch, to the left, okay? And we're just going to type in here 25 millimeters. Hit enter after every command, and it brings you on to the next stage. So now it's asking you to select the object that you want to offset. Now we've already given it the value. Okay, so we want to offset it to here to here. Okay, so it's a click and a click exercise. Okay, if I was to click it from there to there, I could have done that, or I could have done that like so. Okay, but it's a click and a click exercise. Now this little reference line that we did before, we can delete that, and you'll see that underneath that is just the foundation that you drew previously. Okay. Okay, so continuing on with the offset command, what we're going to do now is offset this line, or we're going to draw over this line, and then we're going to offset the uppermost line up to here. So we actually create another line across. Okay, so again, we're going to draw over the top of this line here. Enter to close that off. So we've got a yellow line over our green foundation. And as I said before, this is just like a reference line. So if you go into your offset command, click on that, and we're going to use the same value again, 25. Now I'm going to hit enter, but you could actually type 25 again, but for speed you can actually just, it recognizes the previous value that you've used. So hit enter for that, and then click on the line that you want to offset and click again. So it's a click, click. The second click is the point at which you're landing the object on. Okay, as I said before, you can click, click, you can click, 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 click. See, I keep going to the side that I want to land it on. I'm just going to delete those to bring back to where we want to be. So now, what effectively I've done now is I've effectively created the corner of my curve. So I'm going to eventually delete this line, okay, because again, that was just, it's almost like drawing a grid for yourself. These two lines form a corner or a kind of a grid. So now I can start drawing my precast concrete curve for real. Okay, so I'm going to go up to a polyline command, which basically just means that you're joining all the lines together as one complete entity. I could use line command, but quite often it's good to use a polyline command, and I'll explain that in another video. Okay, so I just want to make sure that my object snap settings are working properly here. So I want to make sure all of these are selected. And this is one of the golden rules I'll keep going on about from time to time. Your object snap settings allow you to lock on to a particular point on a line or a bit of geometry. So the best way is to just select them all, and then you can take off the ones that you don't normally use. But the ones you will use are endpoint, midpoint, perpendicular, center probably as well. And then okay that. So getting back to where we were, polyline up here, click on that, and you've got to go to the start point, right? You know, your command line will give you all of these references, all these prompts. So what we're going to do is we're going to click once, and now look, it's asking you down here, what is the next point you want to go to? So at this point, we are going to go, tell you what we'll do actually. We'll go across the way. We'll go across the way by 125. So we're going to cross this way, 125. And you'll see from here to here is 125. That, don't worry about this bit because we're going to get rid of that in a second. And then you can go up 255, I should say. Okay, so there's the top of your curb. We're going to just draw the flat part at the top of the curb, 105. And we'll come down to, let me see now. I'll just stop the recording for a second. Okay, so picking up from where we left off there, what we want to do now is we want to go down to our ortho and click that to off. So that now gives you this more of a freestyle way of drafting. Like I said, if you click it on, it'll draw up and down, sideways to sideways. If you click on it so that that blue highlight is taken off, it will allow you to draw in sloping directions. Okay, and we're just going to land it on the point at which we started off on. So basically what you've got is a curve here. Now, I'm just going to stop the recording for a second so I can show you what I've done. Okay, so when I draw a polyline, it means that all of the lines are connected together like this. Okay, if you were to do that with a line command, you would have separate lines which look as though they're joined together in appearance, but they're not actually one entity. Okay, I'm just going to hit escape to just take these grips off. I'm just going to delete this line now. So you can just highlight it and delete, or what you can do is you can use your erase button. Okay, pick on the kerb and just drag it up a wee bit so it makes it look more like a kerb. Okay, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to draw our concrete haunch. So we go up to our layers drop down again. And this time we're going to go for our concrete haunch. Oh, 1 second, we didn't delete this one here. That's better. So yeah, we're up to our concrete haunch, and now we want to draw. Again, we can draw a polyline. It's like we're going to be drawing a triangle, and our triangle starts from here. And I want you to just bring it up to about there, okay? Not too far up because you don't want to see the concrete sticking above the ground. Draw it about maybe 3/4 of the way up. Bring it back down to perpendicular and then back across the way. And then enter. Okay, so if you run your mouse over that triangle, you'll see it highlighting, which is what we want. Here, we didn't use a polyline, but to make this all into a polyline here, to get all of these lines all joined intrinsically with each other, we're going to type J for join. So you'll probably see it in the command line. J for join, and you'll get all of these different command prompts appearing. So it's the join command that we're looking for. We're going to join all of these lines together to make them one polyline. So once you do that, just hit enter. And now it's asking you to, I'll just do this again, J for join. Select the source, so we want to select each of these lines so that they're all joined together. Whoops. Okay. So when you select an object or a series of objects, they should actually highlight up. And then once you've done that, select to enter, or enter to select, to complete the selection. So now if you click on this, they're all joined together. Okay, I'll just do it again to the side, so just so that you can see. If I draw a series of lines, okay, I'll tell you what, I'll give this a dimension. I'll make this 300 down, 250 across. This is just a little exercise we're going to show you how to do it. 300 up, 250 across. Okay, so 300, 250, 300, 250. And you can see, because I've used the line command, there's nothing wrong with using the line command, but to speed things up, it's actually quite good to create things into polylines. To join all of these together, it's J for join, enter. Select, now I could select each of these individually, but what I like to do is I like to use a selection box. It's either a blue box from left to right, or it's either I'll just do it again, J for join, or I can use a green box from right to left. When you've got something as simple as this, the two really have the same effect. Okay. So that's all of the lines joined together, and it means that when you do that, you can actually manipulate the box a lot easier, similar to the way I did the precast concrete kerb. Okay, that was just a little example. I'm just going to delete that and go back to our main drawing here. So now we want to go on to our mortar bed. So let's click on this little downward arrow here. Let's go to mortar bed, and this is basically just cement that's put in here just to give it a good bedding. Okay. Now I'm just going to run it from here to here to here to here to here to here to here in this L shape. Again, I'll just use a polyline. I'll start from here, run it into the perpendicular. Yep. Down to the corner, across to that corner, down to that corner, back to this corner, and back to the start again. Okay. And that again, once you run your mouse over it, it'll highlight it. And the reason we want it to be a polyline is so that when we go to hatch inside that, it will actually hatch it a lot easier. Because if you don't have a shape that's got an open boundary, in other words, you want to keep it a closed boundary, it makes it easier to hatch. You'll find that if there was any part of this here that had a gap in it, then it would be very difficult to hatch that. And you'll find that if you just practice that yourself, and you'll find out. Okay, so next part, we're just going to draw a ground level. Now, I haven't created a ground level here at all. I'm just going to create another layer. Okay, so let's just go back up to here, and we're going to go new, and we'll call this ground. Okay. Now that could be a stretch of grass, could be anything at all. What color shall we make it? Let's make it a dark blue. Okay for that. And then we'll close here. In fact, what we'll do is we'll make this our current layer. And to make it your current layer, you go across to here and it's set current. And it brings the tick, it brings this little green tick down to make ground your current layer, and then we'll close it. Okay, close. There we go. So we want our ground to be from the top of our kerb across this way. Okay, you can make a bit of a slope on it if you want, but the most important thing is we're now in our ground layer. Okay, don't have to change that because I set that to my current layer, and now I can basically just draw a line across like so. If I didn't want it to be flat, again, I can go back down to my ortho mode setting here, or I can just hit F8. Okay. And that makes it a little bit more, it gives me a bit more freedom to give it a slope on it. Okay, and I'm going to create another ground layer just from the point of that corner here. And that could be, for example, your road coming in. Okay. And yeah, probably some of you are thinking actually you have a little bit more of a vertical face there. That's fine. You can do that as well if you want. But the most important thing is we're starting to work with our geometry. Now, you're probably noticing that the kerb has kind of lost its color here a little bit. That's because you've drawn lines over the top of that. If I was to click on that kerb and then right-click with my mouse, I can go down to Draw Order, and I can bring that precast concrete kerb to the front. Okay, and then the color yellow comes to the forefront. Okay, and you can do that with anything. You could do it with your foundation if you wanted to. It's not really that important. As long as you know that you've done it, that's the most important thing. We'll do it for the foundation. So if you just click on the foundation with your left button, then right click and go down to Draw Order and Bring to Front. And that brings the green color of your foundation to the front. Okay, I'm just going to stop there, and I'm just going to pause it for a bit. Okay, welcome back. The next thing we're going to do now is we're going to apply some hatches to our drawing, and in this case we're going to do a concrete hatch in the foundation here. And the good thing is that we have joined our lines together previously, which means that we're going to get a nice clean hatch inside. It's not going to start searching for where the boundary is. It's going to be pretty clear to the software whereabouts our hatch is going to be. So if we go up here to this little kind of icon, and if you mouse over, it says hatch. You click on there's a little arrow to the right of that. Click on that and go down to hatch. And across here, you'll see a number of different hatches. Now, to get a better choice of that, you've actually got to go into this little downward arrow here. It's got a little stroke over the top of it, and it'll give you more hatch options. Now, the one that we're looking for is AR/CONC, which is CONC for concrete. We want to click on that, and now we're going to apply this hatch here to to our concrete. Now, there's two ways of doing this. We can pick an internal point or we can select the objects. I prefer to select the objects. So if you just stay on select objects and you click the line itself, okay? Now, I'm just going to do that again because it looks to me as though I'm still working on the ground layer. If you see that, and you see up here, I've actually applied a ground hatch in here. So I should really be on my concrete layer again. I'm going to delete that. I'm going to go back again, change it to my foundation. So now everything's going to read in my foundation layer, the hatch that's going to go in here. So go back and do that again. Click on the little arrow, go to hatch, go to our AR concrete, select objects down here, and there we go. It's a green hatch now because we're in the right layer. Okay, now you can change the density of that hatch pattern, and the way to do that is to go into this little box here, okay, and let's say I was to put in 5 for that instead of 1. That's what you don't want to happen. You want to go below 1 because it makes it more dense. So let's go 0.5, and that makes it a denser hatch. Okay, so hatch patterns are quite useful. Don't put too much of a hatch pattern in. It just kills the drawing, really. What you want is just something to indicate that you've got some aggregate in here. These little sort of triangles are the coarse aggregate, and the little dots probably represent the fine aggregate. Okay, we'll do the same again here. In fact, go back up to our hatch command, hatch, and we'll just click on this triangle and it'll hatch inside the triangle again. Okay, now because this is a precast concrete kerb, I don't want to have concrete hatch all over the place, so I'm just going to leave it the way it is just now. You could probably make that a thicker line just to indicate that it's an actual component or a precast unit. I'm just going to leave it the way it is just now, but I want you to come across here because we're going to apply a bit of hatch to show that we've got some earth in here. Now, the earth hatch it's kind of like a herringbone sort of pattern, and I'm just going to find it for you. If you just go back to hatch here onto the downward arrow, go to hatch, and you've got to go back in here again into this little sort of arrow with a stroke across the top. Click on that, and there's a little kind of slider bar here that you've got to slide up and down, and what we want to do is we want to find an earth hatch. Now, if you just bear with me a second and I'll find that. There we go. It's kind of like a pattern that you might find on some sort of wood parquet flooring. Click on that. Now, what I need to do is I need to create a boundary. So I'm going to go back a couple of steps, and I'm going to create a polyline boundary, right? You can make this any shape you want because we're going to delete that. Just make it any shape you want, okay? Just make it a random shape and make sure that that top green line, it lines up with your ground level. Okay, and to make things better, we're going to make that our ground layer. Okay, we're going to do the same over here. Make sure you're on your ground layer. Apologies for that, folks. Make sure that you're on your ground layer. Go to polyline again, and what we'll do is we'll just bring a kind of a boundary here for our hatch. You don't have to cover the full drawing with a boundary. So now we've got two boundaries, we've got one here and one here, and like I said, we're gonna delete these because we don't need them after we put in the hatch. Now we can go to our hatch again, back and forth. Here we go. We've got our earth hatch pattern there, and we're going to go select objects, and that you'll see how that's come up too dense. So if you zoom right in, you'll see how dense that is. You don't want to see it that dense. It just kills the drawing. So previously 0.5 was okay for our foundation, but not in this case. We're going to make that, let's say if we can make 5. That's actually not too bad. Now, what I tend to do is I tend to change the angle of that hatch pattern a bit. So I'm going to change that to, say, 45. And you'll see the way it just switches it around to 45. Okay. Now, you can hit escape so that it allows you to go back into the hatch pattern again. And we're just going to do the same again for here. Okay. And enter. All right, now, so the next thing, we can just get rid of these boundaries. You don't need that because it just makes it a bit clumsy. You want the hatch pattern to kind of spill out a wee bit. Now, if you wanted to change that, for whatever reason, it's got a kind of a hidden boundary. So you can actually drag them slightly and bring your grips in just a little bit here. And that's all we need to do for that. Okay, so what else do we need to do? We need to do a hatch here for our mortar bed. Now remember, our mortar bed's in here, in this kind of L-shaped feature. So go back up to our layers drop-down box, okay, and go into mortar bed, magenta. This time we want to just put in a series of dots, okay? I want to make them fairly random dots, so I'm actually going to use the hatch here for, not this one, but there's one a bit further down. And what we're looking for is, I think it's under grass, if you could just bear with me a second. No, it's not grass, it's AR sand, that's what we're looking for. AR sand, and let's see if we can make this 1, see what that looks like. And we're going to select objects. Okay, now you can just about see that. So what we're going to do is we're going to make that a bit smaller than 1, and make that 0.5. That's too much. Oh, 0.005. Go back again, not 0.5. Maybe bring it down just a little bit. You can actually use these arrows as well, so we'll just bring it down to it. 0.35 should do the job. Okay, hit enter just to close that off. So now we've got our mortar bed, we've got a precast concrete kerb, we've got a haunch in there. Okay, now when they do this on site, the haunch is not that precise. I mean, let's be honest. Whenever the guys are working out on the roads, they will get something that's going to give it a good enough support, and they're not going to get their measuring instruments out and measure it to that degree or to that angle. But this is for pictorial purposes. Some engineers can be very particular about haunches, about the shape of them, but generally speaking, when we're going to draw a haunch, you want to just give it enough support just to get the back of that kerb supported. Okay, just going to pause it here for a second, and we'll go on to doing some dimensions. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to create some text and dimensions. Now, when you add text and dimensions together, or so I should say when you add text and arrows together, you call them leaders. So we're going to create some leaders as well. So first thing we need to do is we need to go up to our annotate drop down. And if you go to this little diagonal arrow here, this is the first thing we're going to do. We're going to click on that. And this allows you to create text. This is called your text style manager. Okay, and we'll be doing that with this little diagonal arrow all the way across the top of the ribbon here. So the first thing you want to do is you want to create a height for your text. Now, in this case, we're dealing with a detail that's probably going to be at a 1 to 10 scale. So the actual drawing is going to be 10 times less than full size. That means it's 1 to 10. So the height of the text is probably going to be in the region of 20 millimeters. Now, I'll explain that shortly, but the main rule of thumb is if you want your text to be 2 millimeters on an A4 sheet of paper whenever you print it out, and you're working at a scale of 1 to 10, then 10 times 2 is 20. So you want to make this here 20 millimeters. So we're going to go to new first of all, click new, and we're going to give it a title, and we're going to call it text 20, just so that you recognize it. And then this here and this here have to match each other. Okay, you're going to start wondering what height your text is if you don't actually identify them correctly. Okay, and then apply that and then close. So now if we do any text, now you see there's the text that you've just created. If we now go in and apply the text, we can do it in two ways, multi-line text or single line. Now we'll just go from single line first of all. And I'm going to just draw some random text across here. Let's say we go for just putting in kerb, just right in here. Okay, so just use your mouse wheel in here, and don't forget to click on your ortho settings here so that you're drawing straight across. So it's click once, click a second time, and that will then create a kind of a starting point for your. Okay, I'll just do that again for you. Single line text, click once, click a second time to give it the direction, and then just type in what you want to do, and then it's enter, enter. Okay. Now I'm going to put that onto my text layer in a wee second, but you'll see there that that is actually 20 millimeters from the top of that letter down to the bottom of that letter. Now, think of it in these terms. If I drag that text down to our mortar bed, remember that we made our mortar bed 25 between there and there. Well, it stands to sense, really, doesn't it, that if that's 25 and that's 20, then that sits quite neatly against that kind of dimension. If I was to make that height, say 2 millimeters instead of 20 millimeters, you just wouldn't see the text. Okay, so think of it along these lines. Whatever size your drawing is, or if you've got a particular bit of geometry that you know that that's say 20 or 25, pick the text so that it looks right alongside of that. Okay. Now, obviously, that would be different if this was a big drawing of a house or a factory or something like that. Then I would need to, because we draw things at 1-to-1 in our model space, right? We would actually need then to increase the size of our text. So if we were drawing a house, then obviously a bigger model. The bigger the model, the bigger the text. So I would need to bump this up by, and 10 times the size, something like that. So let's work with what we've got just now. Drag that back up to here. Now we're going to create some dimension styles. So we've created our text style up here, text 20. Now we want to go across and use the same diagonal arrow here. And this again brings up our dimension style manager. Again, we need to start a new dimension. Okay, don't work with what you've got here, right? You've got to create a new one. Many people tend to work with standard, and then you really have difficulty in identifying the new dimension. So it's new, and we're going to call this dim 20, because we're working on a height of 20 for all our digits. The digit size and the text size really need to be the same. Continue for that. Don't click annotative, by the way. I'll go back and I'll show you what that does some other time. Okay, just keep it simple for now. Now, if you go across to text here, we want to find the text that we created up here, text 20. There's a text 20 that we've already created. Okay, so when I'm going to click text, we're going to go to text style, click on this little arrow here, and you'll find the text 20 that you created just a few moments ago. Okay, so that's fine. We can see that our text here is fairly good up against the size of the model, so we're on the right tracks. Now we want to create some arrows. Go to Symbols and Arrows. Now the arrow size, you can make that 20 as well, but what I tend to do is I tend to make it just slightly smaller, so I'm going to make it about 17. Anything between 17 and 20 should be good enough for what you're doing. Okay, so you've got a text of 20 and your arrow size is there or thereabouts. Then click OK for that. Okay, and then you'll see there you've got a little arrow in next to your text. Now I can keep modifying this if I want by clicking on the Modify button there, because what I'm going to do now is I'm going to just fine-tune my primary units. Now we're working in millimeters just now, so we don't need our millimeters to be 0.125 or whatever. 1 millimeter is fairly precise, so we'll just round it off to 0. Okay, so if that was 113 millimeters, you know, we would want to see it being 113.025. It would just, people just don't work to that precision. Okay, next thing that we want to do, I think actually we're pretty good to go. If we wanted to, we could go into lines here and we could bring these lines just away from the model just slightly. Might as well just do that. And let's see if we can make it, say, 8 millimeters. Okay, and then close that. Oh, that's too much. We'll just go back in again. 8 millimeters is too much. Let's say 3. We'll go with that just now. We'll come back and change it if we have to. Close that. And the last thing we want to do now is to create some leaders. Okay. So again, using these little diagonal arrows here, go to the diagonal arrow on leader. Now, leader, as I said before, a leader is text with arrows. Okay. And you will find that coming in useful. So it's new, and we'll call it leader 20. Leader 20, continue for that. And again, it's the same idea. We're going to use the same text style. And where do we find that? Well, it's in the Content tab here. Once you click on Content, you want to go down to Text Style here, click on that arrow, and pick out the text 20 that you created about 5 minutes ago. Okay, and now we want to get our arrows. And as I said before, we mentioned it was going to be 17, so we'll just stick with the 17 here. And that's all you need to do for your leader style. Okay. Leaders are just a step up from text and arrows. Okay. Right. Now that means we're good to go. We can now start applying some text and applying some dimensions. So let's try putting in some dimensions first of all. Okay, I've already shown you how to do some text. So in this case, we're going to do some dimensions. Now, what I tend to do is just go for linear. Okay, now you can get different options to go for aligned. You can actually dimension a circle radius, or you can have it on a slope, whatever. Just keep it quite simple for now, and we'll just create a new dimension linear here. Now what you've got to do is you've got to go click, click, and drag. So it's going to be, now see down here, it's giving you the prompt. Okay, so where's the first extension line? There, second extension line there, and then just drag it up. Right, okay, we've made a wee mistake because that 105 should have been in our dimensions layer. So let's just go, and I'll tell you what, we'll do that again. It's very simple to do, just delete that and we'll get on to our correct layer. Now we're on our dimensions layer, we'll just do that again. Fairly simple. Go to annotate, linear, click, click, and drag. Okay, that's the first one done. Next one, click, click, and drag, 255. And then this bit here, the bottom bit is the 155, which I hope so. 125, I should say. 125. Now, what might be better there? No, that's about right. That's about right. Okay, we're just going to dimension the foundation. So what I did there was I actually pressed the enter button to bring back the previous command. Okay, so because I've done a dimension command before, all I need to do is press the enter button and it'll bring back the one. It recognizes the previous command, so I'm going to hit enter, and it means it'll have to keep going back up to the menu or to the ribbon here. So click, click and drag, enter to bring back the previous command, click, click and drag. Okay, now these little extension lines, I'm going to see if I can make them a bit bigger. Okay, so what I'll do is I just go back into the dimension modify tab. I've just got to go into this diagonal arrow again, modify, go to lines, make sure that this is ticked, right? Because if it's not ticked, you'll not be able to change this. Okay, this box here has to be ticked. And let's put in, say, 12 and see how that works. Okay, so that makes it a bit longer. I suppose I could make that, what, maybe 20. It'll be fine for now, just to give you an idea of how that looks. And now I'm going to put in some leaders. Okay, now I'm going to put in, say, 3 or 4 bits of text here with using the leaders. So go to multi-leader. I'll tell you what, we're going to stay, let me see. We shall use our, if you go across to home, we'll use our text layer for this. So that's the gray. Right. So, you know, you could create another layer called leader if you wanted to. So now that we've changed our layer, we'll go back into annotate again. I know it's a bit of toing and froing, but we're getting there. Multi-leader. Okay, and really what you want to do is just click anywhere on that precast concrete curb. Now I'm going to take this ortho mode off, so I'm going to bring it onto ortho off. I'm going to bring my arrow to about here, and now it's going to start, the cursor is going to start flashing, so that allows me to put in PC kerb 255 by 125. Okay, and then once you've done that, it's not an enter this time. You can just click away from that text away anywhere on the screen here, and that'll just land it in place for you. Okay, and you'll see that that's again 20 millimeters. Now we could make that 15 millimeters if you wanted to. That just means you might want to create a new text style up here and make that text 15. But we're fine with what we've got. I'm happy with that size there. I'll tell you what, we'll just get rid of that kerb here. Okay, that's just an example to show you previously. And we'll go back onto multi-leader and we'll just keep working away annotating this. And annotation is very important because we all say pictures say 1,000 words, but you know, you do need good annotation to specify exactly what something's made of. So in this case, we're going to say 400 by 150 in situ. Oops, in situ foundation. In situ means it's poured on site. And then click away from that. Okay, and now you're starting to get a bit of detail on your drawing. Okay. What else do we want to put in? Concrete haunch, for example. So again, multi-leader, using our leader 20 style. We can put it in there if we wanted. Try and keep your text fairly close to the model. You don't want your text too far away because you'll find that whenever you go in to put it on your paper, you'll lose the positioning of your text. It's just better. It is better if you actually keep very close. So what we're putting in here is concrete haunch. Away from that. And we're almost there with that particular model. We know that that's the Earth because it's hatched in that way. Okay, we could put maybe a level on this. In fact, let's do that. Let's say that this level here was going to be maybe 525 above ordnance datum. AOD means above ordnance datum. When you go to do your surveying, you'll understand what that all means. So let's imagine that sea level is 0, okay, and this could be 525 meters above sea level. So let's just draw a little arrow. You can draw it whatever way you want. I tend to use a polyline. Okay, so if I start my arrow from here using a polyline, now you'll see down here, on my first click, I've got a little option here to change the width of that. So the starting width, I'm going to make it 0. So I'm going to just accept that with an enter because I want the point of my arrow to be 0. And the ending width, I'm going to make that, well, let me see now, I could make that, say, 25 or 30. Okay. And there you'll see now, I'll just get that ortho set. The point of the arrow is 0, and the thickness of that arrow at the top is 30. Okay, and then just hit enter. Okay. I wonder, should I just move that on the other side? In fact, I'll just move it up a bit further. Okay, so I could put in text there, like I said, and I could make that using my single line text. I could say level at 525 meters above ordnance datum. Click away from that, and you've basically told the builder that that's the level that you want to set that particular kerb at. Now, these normally happen around manholes, you know, spot levels at manholes, spot levels, various points on your building, even soffit levels. But this just gives you an idea of the kind of level of information that you want to be putting into your drawing. Okay, I'm just going to pause it there for a second, and the next bit what we'll do is to put it onto a layout. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is to put this onto a layout, and your layout tabs are just down on the left of your screen here. I just want to put in another dimension here, that's 150, even though we've actually given it an indication of dimensions here. Just want to finish that off. So we'll go into our home tab. I want to be in my dims there. And again, go back into annotate, and we're just going to finish this one off here. Click, click, and drag. Okay, now that's that done. So now we want to put this onto a layout. Now, the way that the layouts work, you can create as many layouts as you want. If you go down to the bottom left of your screen here, layout 1, if you're lucky enough, it'll just come up straight in front of you, this layout here. If you get annoyed with the text, or I beg your pardon, not the text, the grid here, the way to do that is to hit the grid, just double click inside it and get rid of that grid. Okay, just here, display grid on or off. Okay, so let me explain again about model space. Model space would draw everything at 1:1. Now, even though it's not full size on your screen, imagine that you've got somebody inside your screen, basically a little man, woman, drawing the entire model for you, okay, in full size. The layout tab is meant to help you to scale it onto a sheet of paper, okay? Now, this boundary here is called a viewport. Basically, the principle is that you're actually cutting a hole into your paper and basically framing your model through that porthole, if you like, that viewing port. Okay, so at the moment we are in a thing called paperspace. Now, paperspace is where you're basically able to edit what's going across your paper. Now, I could edit my model by clicking on here and it comes back into model space. So if you see a big thick line around your viewport, that means you can actually go in there and edit the drawing that you've just created. If you see that, I'm just clicking on the text. Okay, so basically I can do just about anything I want to do with that model that I did when it was shown as a black screen. But the purpose of also bringing it into model space is so that we can actually give it a viewport scale as well. Okay, so we want to make sure that this is shown as model. Okay, I want to change the scale here. So we're going to click on the scale and we're going to make it a 1 to 10 scale. Okay. Now I can make as many different scales here as I want. I could probably even make that 1 to 5. It's just about fitting onto an A4 sheet of paper. Let's keep it at 1 to 10 just now, and I'll show you how you can put it into 1 to 5 later. Okay. Once we've done that, we can click back onto model here again. Okay, and that means that you're not able to edit that drawing anymore. Okay, so the thing about a viewport is that you can change the shape of it. Okay, the actual drawing doesn't disappear. Okay, you're basically just, you can hide part of a drawing. Okay, depends what you want to show of that particular drawing. Okay. You can move a viewport. You can move it by going up to your home tab here and moving that box around. I don't really want to do that just now, but I want to show you how to draw a title block. Okay. Now, I'll show you at the start of the PowerPoint the kind of title block that we're looking for. We want to have something like West Lothian College, your name along the bottom here, the scale that you're working to, the date, the name of the project, all these sorts of things. Even if you make some revisions to it, when you revised your drawing, it gives you lots of information from that point of view. So we could move that across if we wanted to. I just want to center this a little bit. So I'm going to go back into my model mode by clicking on this bit here. You see it says when I'm mouse over, it says model or paperspace. Click on that. And if I actually hold down my middle mouse button, I can then just pull that in a little bit. And then it's a little bit of fine tuning. You can just click on that and bring the grips in slightly. You can only do that. You can only work with the grips if you're in paperspace. Okay. If you hit escape, you'll get rid of the grips. Okay. So just a very basic title panel that we're going to draw. So stay in your home tab. Now I could make this as simple as I wanted to. I could go to rectangle. I haven't actually bothered to create a layer for my title block. I might as well just do that now. Just it doesn't take 2 seconds to do that. Okay, so I'll just say title panel. Just make that whatever color you want to, really. Just make it a dark gray. End of the day, it's all going to be printed out in black and white. What you can actually do with colors is you can actually assign a pen thickness to it. So that's the subject of a more advanced video. So we've got a title panel, and we'll just close that there. Let's just make sure we're on that title panel layer here. Okay, so you can zoom in and out as long as you're in paperspace. Okay, I'll show you how to zoom in and out and fix the viewport scale in a second. Let's just get this title panel done. We're going to draw a rectangle, basic rectangle. Okay, zoom in a wee bit. make sure it's inside that dotted line. And what you can start doing then is just basically working up a very simple title panel. Okay, just line out, just rule it out at different points. Oops, hit escape there. Okay, and we'll just create a bottom line here. Okay, we could maybe create something like a vertical line. Enter. Okay, so in this case, whereas before we had a text size of 20, that was only because we had to have that text to fit the model. But now we're in a paper layout, okay? You've got to forget about the model size for the text, okay? We're not working on 20, we're actually going to be working on the actual size of the text that you would see it as if you were reading a book or something like that, about a foot away from your eyes. So in this case, most people can see text of about 2.5, 3 millimeters fairly easily. Okay, if you're just reading it right in front of you, if you've got a sheet of paper and you've just printed it out, we want to make the text across here, we want to make that 2.5 or 3 millimeters. Okay, the text that we did here was really to suit the model. Okay, so you'll have model text, which we've done before. Now we're doing paper text. So that means we've got to go in and create a new style of text. So go into annotate. And as we did before, we're going to create a new text style, but try and differentiate it from the text size that you did before. Okay, so we might call it paper text 3. Okay, new text style, paper text 3. Okay, that. And we're going to change the height to 3. So the 3 here matches the paper text 3 here. If we made it text 20, the text would be far too big. It just wouldn't suit the title panel. Okay, so you've got to realize that when you're working in paper space down here, you've got to get the text size to the appropriate height. Now you can start to put in your name, for example. So we're going to put in name, colon. Okay, now you could put in, you could put it all into the same box if you wanted, or you could create a separate box for your own name. Okay, we'll create a separate box for our own name. Okay, and if we wanted to just bring that out a wee bit, we'll just take out that wee grip. Grips are very handy. You can just bring that out a wee bit more. Okay. Now what I tend to do, once I get one bit of text, I just tend to copy it. So I'm going to just copy that down. So if I go to the Home tab, copy, and just copy a whole load of these down the way so that, you know, I'm going to change these, of course. So that could be scale, that could be date, all these sorts of things. You know, this could be the project title. Start up here first of all. Name, drawing, for example. Again, double click on that. Drawing title, colon, enter. Go down to here. You call the project, just give it a P for project. Okay, and just keep working your way down here. Okay, this is just a bit more speedy for me. Some people might have a quicker way. Okay, you might have something in here like maybe even a logo. Okay, you could say approved by. Okay, so if your boss wants to check your drawing, there we go. And then maybe the date. Okay, and then in here you could have the scale, for example. Okay, so lots of different title panels of different things. Just a very basic one. Okay. Now in this case, our drawing is 1 to 10. Okay, we know that because if you click on, there's two ways of doing it. You can check on the viewport scale. Okay, you can hover over it and it'll actually say right in front of you there, standard scale 1 to 10. If I click on that, I can also check that by going down to the bottom here. So there's different ways to actually control the viewport scale. Okay, the other way is to actually click on model, or you can double click inside here, which I tend to do a lot. If you double click inside, it brings it into model space. Double click outside, you're back into paper space. Double click inside, model space, double click outside, back into paper space. Okay, so like I said, if you go into model space, you can also check the viewport scale. Okay. Now you can, if you wanted to, you can copy your more text across. So in this case, I would call myself John. Enter, enter. Drawing title. Call it assessment. Just double click on that. You're just editing what's in front previously. Scale, for example, in this case, I'm just going to leave the rest blank. In fact, I'll just copy that across. One colon 10. Okay, so that means the drawing that we've done is 10 times less than full size. Okay, this should fit comfortably on an A4 sheet of paper. You're probably wondering what size of paper this is. Well, the default setting that Autodesk gives you is A4 sheet, and I can check on that, and you can actually change the size of the sheet by right-clicking on the Layout tab here. We're working on Layout tab 1 at the minute, by the way. Go to Page Setup Manager, and you'll see the plot size is an A4 sheet. We know that because an A4 sheet is 297 by 210. If it was an A3 sheet, it would be 420 by 297. Okay, we'll just close that just now. And that's all you need to know for now until we go on to the next tutorial. Okay, so the next tutorial we might put on things like, we might work more with angles, we might do a stair drawing, we might work a bit more with trim commands, fillet commands, all that sort of stuff. So that basically gives you an idea of how you can get some fairly good geometry onto a drawing and put it into a paper layout, in this case 1 to 10, and a title block. Okay, and that is the end of this tutorial for now. Thank you.